Little girl calls her mother's emergency contact, never imagining she was heir to 70 million. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and type love in the comments. A beautiful piece of good news may come your way very soon, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. The phone rang at exactly 11:47 p.m., cutting through the silence of Marcus Anderson's penthouse office like a blade through silk. He'd been reviewing quarterly reports for Anderson Industries, his empire of construction and real estate that dominated the Seattle skyline. At 35, Marcus had built his fortune through calculated risks and unwavering determination, earning respect and fear in equal measure throughout the business world. "Anderson Industries, this is Marcus," he answered curtly, expecting another crisis from one of his international divisions. Instead, he heard the most heartbreaking sound imaginable, a small child crying. "Please," came a tiny, trembling voice. "My mommy is sick, and we're gonna lose our house tomorrow. The mean man said if we don't have money, we have to leave. I found this number in mommy's phone under emergency only, and I don't know what else to do." Marcus felt his chest tighten unexpectedly. Children rarely called his direct line, and never at this hour. "Sweetheart, what's your name? Where are your parents?" "My name is Chloe Anderson. My mommy is Rebecca, but she can't talk right now because she's really sick with the fever, and she keeps saying Daddy's name, but Daddy died when I was little, and—" The words tumbled out between sobs, each one hitting Marcus like physical blows. Anderson. The name stopped him cold. "What did you say your last name was?" Marcus gripped the phone harder, his knuckles white against the black device. "Anderson, Chloe Anderson, are you going to help us? The man said tomorrow at noon we have to be gone or the police will make us leave." Marcus's mind raced. Anderson wasn't an uncommon surname, but something about this child's voice, the way she said the name, triggered a memory he'd buried deep. His younger brother David had died 3 years ago in a car accident, along with his wife Sarah and their infant daughter. The police report had been definitive, no survivors. The family had been closed casket due to the severity of the crash. "Chloe, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to help you, okay? Can you tell me your address?" 1247 Maple Street, in the blue house with the broken fence. "But mister, we don't have any money left. Mommy spent everything on her medicine and the doctors, and she cries when she thinks I'm sleeping, because she says we're gonna be homeless." Marcus was already grabbing his jacket and keys. "Chloe, I want you to stay right where you are. I'm coming to help you and your mother. Can you do that for me? You promise?" "Mommy always says people make promises they don't keep. I keep my promises, Chloe. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As Marcus ended the call and rushed to his private elevator, one question burned in his mind. How could David's daughter be alive when her death certificate sat in his safe at home? He'd attended her funeral, for God's sake. He'd thrown dirt on her tiny white coffin. The drive through Seattle's empty streets felt eternal. Marcus called his assistant, waking her despite the late hour. "Patricia, I need you to pull everything from David's estate file. Everything. Have it on my desk first thing tomorrow." "Sir, is everything all right?" "I don't know yet. Just do it." When Marcus pulled up to 1247 Maple Street, his heart sank. The house was a tiny, run-down bungalow in one of Seattle's forgotten neighborhoods. Paint peeled from the siding, and indeed, the front fence hung askew on broken hinges. This was a world away from the Anderson family fortune. Before he could knock, the front door creaked open. A small face peered out, blonde hair tangled, bright blue eyes red from crying, wearing pajamas that had seen better days. But those eyes. Marcus felt his breath catch. They were David's eyes. They were Anderson eyes. "Are you the man from the phone?" she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm Marcus. Can I come in?" Chloe nodded and stepped aside, revealing a living room that spoke of desperate poverty. Furniture was sparse and worn, medical bottles covered every surface, and the smell of sickness hung heavy in the air. On the couch lay a woman who couldn't have been more than 28, burning with fever and unconscious. "That's my mommy, Rebecca. She's been sick for 2 weeks and won't wake up much. I tried to give her the medicine, but we ran out yesterday." Marcus knelt beside the couch, gently checking Rebecca's pulse and temperature. Her fever was dangerously high. "Chloe, we need to get your mother to a hospital right now. Can you pack a few things while I call an ambulance?" "Will they make us pay? Mommy says hospitals cost lots of money and we don't have any left." Marcus looked into those innocent blue eyes, David's eyes, and made a decision that would change everything. "Don't worry about money, sweetheart. I'm going to take care of everything." And as the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, Marcus held Chloe's small hand and wondered how his world had just turned completely upside down. If this child truly was David's daughter, then everything he thought he knew about his brother's death was a lie. And if she was David's daughter, then she wasn't just an orphaned child in need of help. She was the rightful heir to David's $70 million fortune, money that had been sitting in trust, waiting for an heir who was supposed to be dead. The pediatric ward at Seattle Children's Hospital had never seen Marcus Anderson before, but his reputation preceded him. Nurses whispered as he sat in the family waiting area, still wearing his $1,000 suit at 4 in the morning, cradling a sleeping 7-year-old who refused to leave his side. Rebecca had been admitted with pneumonia and severe dehydration. The doctors assured him she would recover, but it would take time. Chloe had finally fallen asleep against his shoulder after hours of tears and worry about her mother. "Mr. Anderson," Dr. Sarah Chen approached quietly. "Rebecca is stable now. The antibiotics are working, and we've got her fever under control. She should wake up within the next few hours." "Thank you, doctor. And the child?" "Chloe is remarkably resilient, though she shows signs of prolonged stress and inadequate nutrition. Nothing that proper care can't fix." Dr. Chen paused. "Are you family?" "Our records show Rebecca Miller as a single mother with no emergency contacts listed." Marcus hesitated. He couldn't explain what he didn't yet understand himself. "I'm looking into the family connection. For now, I'm taking responsibility for both of them." Dr. Chen nodded professionally, though curiosity flickered in her eyes. "We'll need to discuss long-term care arrangements once Rebecca is conscious." "Agreed." When the doctor left, Marcus carefully transferred Chloe to a more comfortable chair and stepped into the hallway to make calls. First, he contacted his family lawyer. "James, I need you to meet me at the office at 7 a.m. Bring everything from David's estate file." "Marcus, it's 4:30 in the morning. What's this about?" "And I think David's daughter might be alive." The silence on the other end stretched for long moments. "That's impossible. I handled the death certificates myself. The entire family died in that accident." "Then explain how a 7-year-old girl named Chloe Anderson just called my emergency line, knowing details only family would know." "I'll be there at 7. Next, Marcus called his head of security. "Tony, I need you to run a complete background check on Rebecca Miller, 1247 Maple Street. Focus on the last 4 years. I want to know everything, where she came from, how she ended up in Seattle, any connection to David Anderson. Consider it done, boss." As dawn broke over Seattle, Marcus found himself studying Chloe's sleeping face. The resemblance to David was unmistakable now that he was looking for it. The slight cleft in her chin, the way her eyebrows arched, even the stubborn set of her jaw as she slept, all Anderson traits. When visiting hours began, Marcus left Chloe with a trusted nurse and drove to his office. The 40-story Anderson Tower dominated downtown Seattle, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a beacon of power. But today, Marcus felt anything but powerful. He felt like a man whose entire world might have been built on a lie. James Whitmore was waiting in the conference room, David's estate files spread across the massive mahogany table. At 62, James had been the Anderson family attorney for over 3 decades, handling everything from business deals to personal tragedies. "I've reviewed everything twice," James said without preamble. According to these documents, David Anderson, his wife Sarah, and their 18-month-old daughter Chloe died in a single car accident on Highway 101 3 years and 4 months ago. Closed casket funeral due to the severity of the crash. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "Then how is David's daughter sleeping in a hospital chair right now? Marcus, I understand you want to help this child, but look at these photos." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing pictures he'd taken of Chloe. "Tell me you don't see David in that face." James studied the images, his expression growing troubled. "The resemblance is striking, but it could be coincidental. Run a DNA test. Today. That's not legally binding without proper consent from the mother. Then we wait for Rebecca to wake up and ask her permission. But James, if I'm right, this changes everything. David's trust fund, the inheritance, the foundation, it all goes to his rightful heir. If you're right, it means someone faked those death certificates. Someone wanted David's family to disappear." James's voice dropped. "That's not an accident, Marcus. That's conspiracy." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Tony. "Found something big." Rebecca Miller appeared in Seattle exactly 3 years ago with no prior history, new identity, new social security number. Someone gave her a complete fresh start, sending full report now. Marcus read Tony's detailed report with growing amazement and anger. Rebecca Miller had materialized in Seattle with perfect documentation, but no verifiable past. Her social security number had been issued 3 years ago, despite her being 28 years old. Her rental history, employment records, even her medical files, all began on the same date, 2 weeks after David's supposed death. "Someone helped her disappear," Marcus said slowly. "But why? And from what?" James was reviewing the DNA protocols when Marcus's phone rang. The hospital. "Mr. Anderson, this is Dr. Chen. Rebecca is awake and asking for her daughter. She seems agitated when we mention you. She keeps saying something about they found us and asking if we called anyone." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "I'll be right there." The drive back to the hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of his life. When he arrived at Rebecca's room, he found her sitting up in bed, holding Chloe tightly while speaking to a police officer. "Ma'am, if you're in some kind of danger, we can help," the officer was saying. "You don't understand. No one can help. I have to take my daughter and leave, now." Rebecca looked up as Marcus entered, and he saw pure terror in her eyes. "You," she whispered. "Oh God, you found us." Chloe looked between her mother and Marcus in confusion. "Mommy, this is the nice man who helped us. He saved you. Chloe, come here, baby. We have to go." "Mrs. Miller," Marcus said carefully, "I'm not here to hurt you. I think your daughter might be my niece. My brother was David Anderson." Rebecca went pale as death. "David's dead. They're all dead. That's what they told me." "Who told you? Who gave you the new identity?" Rebecca's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. "I can't. If they know we're alive, they'll finish what they started. They'll kill us both." "Who? Who wants to kill you?" But Rebecca was already trying to get out of bed, despite the IV in her arm and her obvious weakness. "Chloe, get your things." "We're leaving right now." Marcus stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Rebecca, I need you to trust me. If someone tried to kill you and Chloe, I can protect you both. But I need to know the truth about what happened 3 years ago." Rebecca stopped struggling and looked directly at him, tears streaming down her face. "The truth?" The truth is that your brother discovered something he shouldn't have, and when David threatened to expose it, they tried to kill our whole family." She took a shaky breath. "They thought they succeeded. But David saved us at the last minute, and someone helped us disappear. We've been hiding ever since." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. What did David discover? Something about Anderson Industries. Something worth killing for. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors and Chloe's confused sniffling. Marcus realized he wasn't just looking at his long-lost niece. He was looking at the key to a conspiracy that reached into the heart of his own company. The private dining room at Emerald City Hospital's executive floor had been transformed into an impromptu war room. Marcus had used his influence to secure the space, knowing they needed privacy for what Rebecca was about to reveal. Security guards he trusted stood outside while inside. Rebecca sat with Chloe on her lap, both of them looking fragile but determined. Dr. Chen had agreed to continue Rebecca's treatment in the private suite, and child services had been temporarily satisfied with Marcus's guardianship paperwork, though he knew those arrangements wouldn't hold for long without answers. "Before I tell you anything," Rebecca said, her voice stronger now after 12 hours of rest and medication, "I need to know you're really David's brother, not just someone pretending to be him." Marcus nodded and pulled out his phone, scrolling to family photos. "This is David and me at Christmas, 2 years before he died. This one's from his wedding to Sarah, and this—" He paused at a photo that made his chest tight. "This is David holding baby Chloe in the hospital the day she was born." Chloe leaned forward to look at the screen. "That's my daddy. Mummy, that's Daddy holding me when I was tiny." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears as she studied the photos. The resemblance between the brothers was clear, both tall, dark-haired, with the same strong jawline and intelligent eyes. "David showed me these same pictures," she whispered. "He was so proud of his big brother, even when—" "Even when what?" "Even when he discovered you weren't who he thought you were." Marcus felt like he'd been slapped. "What do you mean?" Rebecca shifted Chloe to the chair beside her and leaned forward. 3 years ago, David came to me with documents he'd found in your father's old files, financial records, correspondence, meeting notes. He'd been researching Anderson family history for Chloe's baby book when he stumbled across something that changed everything. She paused, gathering strength. David discovered that Anderson Industries wasn't built on construction and real estate like everyone believes. The real money, the foundation of the entire empire, came from something else entirely. Marcus felt his world tilting. "That's impossible. I know every aspect of our business." "Do you? Do you know about the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands? The shell companies funneling money through Southeast Asia? The government contracts that were obtained through bribes and blackmail?" Marcus stared at her in shock. "You're talking about crimes that would destroy thousands of lives, including our employees. Anderson Industries is clean." "The current operations might be," Rebecca said, "but the money that built your empire came from arms dealing, Marcus. Your father was selling weapons to rebel groups, dictators, anyone who would pay. And when David found proof, he also found evidence that you were involved. I would never—" David thought the same thing. "He confronted you, remember? 3 years ago, he came to your office with a briefcase full of documents. You had a huge fight. He stormed out, saying he was going to the FBI. Marcus's memory crashed back like a tidal wave. He did remember that fight. David had been ranting about dirty money and blood on our hands, but Marcus had assumed he was having some kind of breakdown. The documents David showed him had looked like complicated financial records that made no sense. "I thought he was paranoid," Marcus said quietly. "The papers looked like forgeries. I told him to see a therapist. They weren't forgeries. David spent months verifying everything." And when he realized you weren't going to help him expose the truth, he decided to take everything to federal investigators himself. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. Someone found out. The day before David was supposed to meet with the FBI, our car was forced off the road by a truck with no license plates. David managed to protect Chloe and me, but barely. When I woke up in the hospital, a woman was there. Someone from witness protection, she said. She told me David and Sarah were dead, and that if I wanted Chloe to survive, we had to disappear. Marcus felt sick. The funeral, I buried my brother and his family. You buried empty coffins. The woman showed me newspaper clippings, official death certificates, everything. She said it was the only way to keep the killers from finishing the job. David's evidence was destroyed in the crash, but the people behind the cover-up didn't know that. They thought we all had copies. Who was this woman? What agency? I don't know. She gave me new identities, new social security numbers, an apartment in Seattle, and a job at a medical clinic under my new name, Rebecca Miller. She said if anyone ever connected us to David Anderson, Chloe and I would be killed within 24 hours. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, his mind reeling. But if all this is true, then why am I still alive? Why haven't they killed me? Rebecca looked at him with something like pity. Because you didn't know. David realized that before he died. In the hospital with his last breath, he told me you were innocent. He said the only way to keep you safe was to let you believe we were dead. Chloe had been listening quietly, not understanding most of the adult conversation, but sensing the tension. Mommy, are the bad people going to hurt Uncle Marcus too? Uncle Marcus. The words hit him like a physical blow. This beautiful, innocent child was calling him uncle, and he'd spent 3 years believing she was dead. No, baby, Rebecca said, pulling Chloe close. Uncle Marcus is going to help us figure out how to stop the bad people. Marcus looked at his phone as it buzzed with a message from Tony, his security chief. Boss, we've got a problem. Someone's been asking questions about you and the girl at the hospital. Professional surveillance team. They know. Marcus showed the message to Rebecca, whose face went white with terror. They found us, she whispered, just like I knew they would. We have to run right now. No. Marcus stood up, his voice filled with determination that surprised even him. We're not running. Chloe is my brother's daughter, which makes her my responsibility. And if someone killed David to cover up crimes committed in my family's name, then I'm going to find out who and make them pay. He looked down at Chloe, who was watching him with David's eyes full of trust. Besides, there's something else you need to know. David wasn't just investigating our father's crimes. He was also the sole heir to a $70 million trust fund, which means Chloe isn't just my niece. Rebecca stared at him in shock. What are you saying? I'm saying your daughter is one of the wealthiest 7-year-olds in America, and someone has been stealing her inheritance for 3 years. Marcus pulled out his phone and started making calls. Tony, I need a full security team at the hospital immediately, and get James Whitmore here with DNA testing equipment. We're going to prove Chloe's identity once and for all. He looked at Rebecca with grim determination. Whoever killed David made one crucial mistake. They let his daughter live, and now she's going to inherit everything they tried to steal. But even as Marcus spoke those brave words, he could see the fear in Rebecca's eyes. She knew something he didn't, something that made her believe no amount of money or security could protect them from what was coming. Outside the hospital windows, Seattle's skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun, dominated by the Anderson Tower that Marcus had always seen as a symbol of his family's legacy. Now he wondered if it was actually a monument to blood money and murder, and somewhere in that city, the people who had killed his brother were closing in, ready to finish what they had started 3 years ago. Marcus's phone rang again. This time it was James Whitmore, his voice tight with urgency. "Marcus, we have a major problem. I just got a call from the executor of David's estate. Someone filed legal papers this morning, claiming to represent Chloe Anderson's legal guardian. They're demanding immediate access to the trust fund. That's impossible. Chloe's supposed to be dead. Apparently not anymore. According to these documents, a law firm in Portland has been managing her affairs since the accident. They claim she's been in foster care and is now ready to claim her inheritance." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "James, Chloe has been living in poverty with Rebecca for 3 years. There is no Portland law firm. Then someone is making a very sophisticated play for $70 million. And Marcus, the paperwork is perfect. DNA evidence, birth certificates, medical records. If I didn't know better, I'd believe it myself." Rebecca had been listening to the conversation, her face growing paler by the moment. "They're not just trying to kill us," she whispered. "They're trying to steal her identity completely." Marcus hung up and immediately called Tony again. "I need you to trace that Portland law firm. Find out who's behind it." "Already on it, boss. But we've got bigger problems. I've identified the surveillance team. They're not government, and they're not private investigators. These are the kind of people who make problems disappear permanently." Chloe looked up from the coloring book a nurse had brought her. "Uncle Marcus, why does everyone look so scared? Are we still in trouble?" Before Marcus could answer, Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway with a troubled expression. "Mr. Anderson, I need to speak with you privately." Marcus stepped into the hallway with the doctor, leaving Rebecca and Chloe under the watchful eye of his security team. "We've had some unusual requests for information about your family members," Dr. Chen said carefully. 3 different people claiming to be social workers, 2 claiming to be from Child Protective Services, and 1 who said he was from the FBI. None of them had proper identification when pressed. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, thanks to your legal paperwork giving you temporary guardianship. But Mr. Anderson, I've been practicing medicine for 15 years, and I've never seen this level of interest in one family. What exactly is going on?" Marcus considered how much to reveal. "Dr. Chen, that little girl in there is worth $70 million, and there are people who will kill to get their hands on that money." The doctor's eyes widened. "Should I call the police? The people after them might have connections in the police department. Right now, private security is our best option." Marcus paused. "How quickly could you discharge Rebecca if we needed to move them?" "She needs at least another 24 hours of IV antibiotics. Moving her now could be dangerous." "More dangerous than staying here?" Dr. Chen looked through the window at Chloe, who was showing Rebecca her coloring with innocent joy. "I'll prepare a mobile IV unit. If you need to move them, we can continue her treatment wherever you take her." When Marcus returned to the room, he found Rebecca teaching Chloe a simple card game with a deck the nurses had provided. For a moment, watching them together, he could see the family life David had dreamed of. Peaceful, loving, normal. It broke his heart to know that innocence was about to be shattered again. "Oh, Rebecca, we need to talk about David's evidence. You said it was destroyed in the crash, but did he make copies? Did he hide anything?" Rebecca glanced at Chloe, who was absorbed in arranging her cards. "David was paranoid in the months before he died. He said if anything happened to him, I should look for a safety deposit box. He gave me a key and an address, but I never went. I was too scared." She reached into her purse, a worn, cheap thing that spoke of years of poverty, and pulled out a small silver key. "Box 247 at First National Bank downtown. David said if he ever disappeared, everything I needed to protect Chloe would be in there." Marcus stared at the key like it was a live grenade. That box might contain the evidence that got David killed, or it might contain the evidence that could put his killers in prison. Before Marcus could respond, Tony burst through the door, his face grim. "Boss, we need to move. Now." The surveillance team just got reinforcements, and they're not playing around anymore. I count at least 6 men positioned around the hospital, and they all have the look of military contractors. "How much time do we have?" "Maybe 10 minutes before they make their move. I've got a secure route planned to the parking garage, but we need to go immediately." Marcus turned to Dr. Chen. "Get that mobile IV unit ready, we're leaving." "This is highly irregular. Doctor, in about 5 minutes, people with guns are going to come looking for this family. Do you want to be here when they arrive?" "Doctor." Chen's medical training warred with her instinct for self-preservation. Medical training 1. "I'll get the equipment." As the doctor rushed out, Marcus knelt beside Chloe's chair. "Sweetheart, we're going to play a game now, okay? We're going to pretend we're spies, and we have to sneak out of the hospital very quietly." Chloe's eyes lit up with excitement. "Like in the movies, are we the good guys or the bad guys?" "We're definitely the good guys. And good guys always win, right?" "Right!" Chloe started gathering her few belongings, the coloring book, crayons, and a small stuffed rabbit that Rebecca had somehow managed to keep through 3 years of hiding. Rebecca stood shakily, still weak from her illness but determined. "Marcus, if something happens to me, promise me you'll protect her. Don't let them use her for whatever they're planning. Nothing's going to happen to you. We're all getting out of here together." Tony was coordinating with his security team through an earpiece. "Boss, we've got a problem. They're not just watching the exits, they're coming in. Hospital security is being told it's a federal operation." Marcus felt his blood run cold. These people had resources, connections, and no regard for collateral damage. They were willing to stage a federal raid on a hospital to get to Chloe. "Doctor." Chen returned with a portable IV unit and a bag of medical supplies. "I've arranged for a wheelchair and told my staff that we're transferring the patient to another facility. That should buy us some time." As they prepared to leave, Chloe tugged on Marcus's jacket. "Uncle Marcus, I'm scared. What if the bad people catch us?" Marcus knelt down to her eye level, looking into those innocent blue eyes, David's eyes, and felt a fierce protectiveness he'd never experienced before. "You know what, Chloe? I'm a little scared too. But brave people feel scared sometimes. The difference is they do the right thing anyway. Are you going to do the right thing?" "I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you and your mom safe. That's a promise." Chloe nodded solemnly and took his hand. "Okay. I trust you, Uncle Marcus." As Tony led them through the hospital's back corridors, Marcus realized that somewhere in the past 12 hours, his life had completely changed. He was no longer just a successful CEO running a business empire. He was now a protector, a guardian, and possibly the only thing standing between an innocent child and people who had already killed to get what they wanted. The silver key in his pocket seemed to burn against his leg. Whatever David had hidden in that safety deposit box might be the key to everything, or it might be the final piece of evidence that would get them all killed. But as he looked down at Chloe's trusting face, Marcus knew he would face whatever was in that box. David had died trying to expose the truth. The least Marcus could do was finish what his brother had started. Behind them, the sound of heavy boots echoed through the hospital corridors. Their pursuers had arrived. The real game was about to begin. The underground parking garage of Seattle Children's Hospital had never felt more like a war zone. Tony's security team moved with military precision, checking every corner and shadow as they escorted Marcus, Rebecca, and Chloe toward the armored SUV waiting in the furthest corner. Rebecca leaned heavily on the wheelchair, the portable IV unit rolling beside her as Dr. Chen monitored her vitals with obvious concern. Despite her weakness, she clutched Chloe's hand like a lifeline, her eyes darting to every possible threat. "Mommy, why are we going so fast?" Chloe whispered, sensing the tension even though the adults were trying to make it seem like an adventure. "We're just going somewhere safer, baby," Rebecca managed, though her voice was tight with pain and fear. Marcus stayed close to them, his mind racing through contingency plans. The key to David's safety deposit box felt like it was burning a hole in his pocket, but he knew they had to reach it before whoever was chasing them figured out it existed. Tony's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Boss, we've got movement on levels 2 and 3. They're doing a systematic search. We need to move now." As they reached the SUV, Marcus helped Rebecca into the back seat, while Tony's men formed a protective perimeter. Dr. Chen handed him a bag of medical supplies and spare IV bags. "She needs these antibiotics every 6 hours, the doctor said urgently. "And if her fever spikes above 102, get her to an emergency room immediately." "Thank you for everything," Marcus said, shaking her hand. "Send me a bill for whatever this cost the hospital." Dr. Chen looked at him seriously. "Just keep that little girl safe. She reminds me of my own daughter." As they pulled out of the garage, Marcus saw black SUVs converging on the hospital entrance. They'd escaped with minutes to spare. "Where are we going, Uncle Marcus?" Chloe asked, trying to see out the tinted windows. "We're going to visit a bank, sweetheart. Your daddy left something special there for us to find." Tony navigated through Seattle's downtown traffic with expert skill, taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't being followed. "Boss, I've got 3 teams doing counter-surveillance. So far, we're clean." First National Bank occupied the entire ground floor of a gleaming 40-story tower in Seattle's financial district. Marcus had done business there for years, but he'd never imagined he'd be walking in with his supposedly dead niece and her mother, fugitives from whoever had murdered his brother. The bank manager, Harrison Cole, greeted Marcus personally. At 55, Harrison had managed accounts for Seattle's elite for decades, and he understood the value of discretion. "Mr. Anderson, how can we help you today?" Harrison's eyes flickered curiously to Rebecca and Chloe, but his professional demeanor never wavered. "I need to access safety deposit box 247. It was rented by my late brother, David Anderson." Harrison consulted his computer system. "Yes, that box is still active. However, according to our records, David Anderson died 3 years ago. The box has been maintained by automatic payments from his estate." Marcus pulled out the key Rebecca had given him. "I have authorization to access it on behalf of his daughter, Chloe Anderson." "I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, but our records show that David Anderson's daughter also died in the same accident, without proper legal documentation proving otherwise." Marcus felt frustration building, but before he could argue, Chloe tugged on his sleeve. "Uncle Marcus, can I tell the nice man something?" Marcus knelt down to her level. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Daddy taught me a special number to remember. He said if I ever needed to prove who I was, I should tell someone the number. It's 07 to 15 2018 CAA 70M. Harrison's eyebrows shot up. That's the box access code David Anderson established. Only he and the authorized heir would know that combination. "July 15th, 2018, Rebecca whispered. "That was the day David opened the box. He told me it was Chloe's insurance policy." 20 minutes later, they sat in a private viewing room as Marcus opened the metal box with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of documents, photographs, financial records, and a sealed letter addressed to "My brother Marcus, in case something happens to me." Marcus opened the letter with shaking hands and read David's familiar handwriting. "Marcus, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. By now, you know that Chloe and Rebecca are alive, and you probably think I kept them hidden from you out of paranoia or madness. The truth is more complicated and more dangerous than you could imagine. The documents in this box prove that Anderson Industries was built on blood money, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is that someone inside our own company orchestrated the weapons deals, used our legitimate business as a front, and when I discovered the truth, they tried to kill us all. Marcus, I need you to understand, you were never meant to know about any of this. The guilty parties have been carefully keeping the criminal side of the business separate from your operations. You're innocent, but you're also the perfect cover. Your genuine ignorance and clean reputation have been protecting them for years. The person behind everything is someone you trust completely. Someone who has access to all our financial records, all our legal documents, and all our family information. Someone who could arrange for fake death certificates and cover up a murder without raising suspicion. Look for the bank routing numbers in the financial records. Follow the money trail to the offshore accounts. But Marcus, be careful who you trust. The person who tried to kill us is still inside Anderson Industries, still in a position of power, and still desperate to keep these secrets buried. Take care of my daughter. She's all that matters now. Your brother. David Marcus's hands shook as he set the letter down. Rebecca was reading over his shoulder, her face pale with understanding. He never told me who it was, she whispered. Even at the end, he was protecting me by not giving me that information. Marcus began sorting through the documents, and what he found made his blood run cold. Bank statements showing millions of dollars being funneled through Anderson Industries to offshore accounts. Correspondence with arms dealers in Eastern Europe, South America, and Africa. Purchase orders for weapons that were being sold to rebel groups and dictatorships. And in the center of it all, one name appeared on every document as the point of contact. James Whitmore, Marcus's trusted family attorney and closest advisor. No, Marcus said aloud. This can't be right. James has been like a father to me since Dad died. He's been handling our legal affairs for 30 years. Rebecca looked at the documents with growing horror. Marcus, this says the weapons deals have been ongoing for decades. This isn't something recent. This goes back to before you even took over the company. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from James. Marcus, where are you? We need to meet immediately. I've discovered something terrible about David's death. I think I know who killed him. The irony was almost laughable. James Whitmore, the man who had apparently orchestrated David's murder, was now pretending to be concerned about finding David's killer. Marcus showed the message to Rebecca, whose face went white. He knows we found the evidence. He's trying to lure you into a trap. Tony, who had been monitoring the bank's security, suddenly appeared in the doorway. Boss, we've got a problem. James Whitmore just walked into the bank with 2 federal marshals. They're asking about you specifically. Marcus felt the walls closing in. He's using his connections to make this look official. If we get arrested, Chloe disappears into the system and Rebecca ends up dead in a prison accident. There's a service exit through the basement, Tony said. But we need to move right now. As they gathered the documents and prepared to leave, Chloe looked up at Marcus with worried eyes. Uncle Marcus, are we in trouble? Did we do something bad? Marcus knelt down and took her small hands in his. No, sweetheart, we didn't do anything wrong. But there are some bad people who want to hurt us because we found out about the bad things they did. Like the bad people who hurt Daddy? Exactly like that. But I promise you, I'm not going to let them hurt you or your mom. Chloe nodded solemnly. Daddy always said you were the strongest person he knew. He said if anything ever happened, you would take care of us. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. David had trusted him completely, even while hiding from people who were using Marcus's own company to commit crimes. The weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders like lead. They made their way through the bank's service corridors, the documents from David's box secured in a briefcase that could change everything or get them all killed. Behind them, They could hear James Whitmore's voice echoing through the marble halls of the bank, demanding to know if Marcus Anderson had been there. As they reached the basement exit, Marcus made a decision that would either save them all or destroy everything he'd built. He was going to take the evidence public. He was going to expose James Whitmore and everyone else involved, even if it meant bringing down Anderson Industries in the process. David had died for the truth. Chloe deserved justice, and Marcus finally understood what his brother had been trying to tell him 3 years ago. Some things were more important than money, power, or even family legacy. Some things were worth risking everything to protect. The abandoned warehouse in Seattle's industrial district had been converted into Marcus's emergency command center in less than 4 hours. Tony's security team had swept it for surveillance devices, established secure communication lines, and set up a medical station where Dr. Chen, who had insisted on coming with them, could continue treating Rebecca. Chloe sat at a child-sized table someone had procured, coloring in a new book, while Rebecca slept fitfully nearby, her fever finally under control. The innocence of the scene was a stark contrast to the war room atmosphere surrounding them. Marcus spread David's documents across several tables, cross-referencing bank records with shipping manifests and correspondence. What he discovered was a conspiracy that went far deeper than arms dealing. It was a systematic corruption that had infected Anderson Industries at its very core. "Boss, we've got intel on James Whitmore's movements," Tony reported. "He's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. According to our source inside the company, he's planning to have you declared mentally unstable and assume control of Anderson Industries as your legal guardian." "On what grounds?" "Apparently, you've been suffering from paranoid delusions about a non-existent conspiracy, and you kidnapped a mentally ill woman and her child, believing them to be your dead family members." Marcus felt sick. He's been planning this for years. Every time I trusted him with a decision, every time I relied on his legal advice, he was positioning himself to take over if I ever became a threat. Dr. Chen looked up from checking Rebecca's IV. "Marcus, there's something you should know. When I was handling Rebecca's admission, I noticed something odd in her medical files. She's had multiple surgeries over the past 3 years, operations that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars." "What kind of surgeries?" "Reconstructive surgery on her face, dental work, even some scarring that looks like it was from severe burns. Someone spent a fortune making sure she looked different from how she appeared before the accident." Rebecca stirred at the sound of conversation and opened her eyes. "You found out about the surgeries," she said weakly. "Rebecca, what happened in that car crash?" Marcus asked gently. She struggled to sit up, accepting the water Dr. Chen offered. "The truck didn't just force us off the road. After the crash, men got out and poured gasoline on our car. They were going to burn us alive to make sure there were no witnesses." The room fell silent, except for the sound of Chloe's crayons on paper. "David managed to get me and Chloe out through the back window, but I was burned badly trying to save Sarah. David went back for her, but the car exploded before he could get her out." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. "The woman who helped us, she said the only way to keep Chloe safe was to make sure I looked different, sounded different, became a completely different person. Every surgery, every procedure, it was to erase any trace of who I used to be." Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. "You're not just Rebecca Miller, are you? You're someone else, entirely." Rebecca nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "My real name is Dr. Rebecca Harrison. I was David's research partner at the university. We discovered the weapons deals together when David asked me to help him analyze the financial records." The name hit Marcus like lightning. "Dr. Rebecca Harrison. You're the forensic accountant who testified against Senator Morrison in the arms dealing scandal 5 years ago. Your testimony put him in prison." and made me a target for everyone else involved in the conspiracy. David and I weren't just married. We were working together to expose the entire network. That's why they tried to kill us all. We weren't just witnesses to individual crimes. We had evidence of a systematic operation that reached into government, military, and corporate levels. Dr. Chen looked between them with growing understanding. That's why the fake identities were so sophisticated. You weren't just hiding from corporate criminals. You were hiding from people with government connections. Marcus's phone buzzed with an encrypted message from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Anderson, I was David's contact in the Justice Department. I know about the evidence. Meet me at Pike Place Market, North Entrance, in 2 hours. Come alone. Your niece's life depends on it. It's a trap, Tony said immediately. Has to be. But Marcus studied the message more carefully. Wait, look at this. He showed them a photo attached to the message. It was David and Rebecca at their wedding, but taken from an angle that suggested it was surveillance footage. Only someone with access to federal surveillance files would have that photo, Rebecca said. David mentioned he had a contact in justice who was helping him build the case. Marcus made his decision. I'm going to meet with them. Absolutely not, Tony protested. It's too dangerous. Everything we've done has been dangerous. But if there really is someone in the Justice Department who can help us, we need that alliance. Chloe looked up from her coloring. Uncle Marcus, are you going somewhere? Marcus knelt beside her chair. Just for a little while, sweetheart. I'm going to meet with someone who might be able to help us stop the bad people for good. Will you be safe? The simple question nearly broke his heart. This child had already lost one father to the people they were fighting. Now she was asking if she might lose her uncle too. I'm going to do everything I can to stay safe, Marcus said. And when I come back, we're going to make sure you and your mum never have to hide again. 2 hours later, Marcus stood at the north entrance of Pike Place Market, one of Seattle's busiest tourist attractions. The crowds provided cover, but they also made it impossible to spot potential threats. He carried a briefcase with copies of David's evidence. If this was a trap, at least the originals would remain safe. Mr. Anderson. A woman in her 40s approached him, showing an FBI badge. Agent Sarah Martinez. I was David's contact. Marcus studied her carefully. She had the bearing of a federal agent, but in his current situation, he trusted no one completely. Prove you knew David. Agent Martinez pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of David in what looked like a federal building, shaking hands with her. This was taken the day before he died. He was supposed to testify to a federal grand jury about Anderson Industries' connection to international arms dealing. Why didn't you protect him? We tried. We had a safe house ready, witness protection arranged. But someone with high-level access tipped off the conspirators. The attack on your brother's family happened before we could get them into protective custody. Agent Martinez looked around nervously. Mr. Anderson, I need you to understand the scope of what we're dealing with. This isn't just about your family or your company. The weapons that were sold through Anderson Industries have been used in conflicts around the world. Thousands of people have died. Then why haven't you arrested everyone involved? Because until now we didn't have enough evidence to prosecute. James Whitmore has been very careful to keep his hands clean. All the direct criminal activity was handled through intermediaries and shell companies. She opened a folder and showed him photographs of bank accounts, shipping records and communications. But David's evidence, combined with what we've been able to gather independently, gives us everything we need to bring down the entire network. Marcus felt a surge of hope. So we can stop them. We can. But there's a complication. Tomorrow morning, James Whitmore is planning to have you declared mentally incompetent and assume control of Anderson Industries. Once he has legal control of your company, he can destroy all the evidence and disappear the offshore funds. Then we stop him tonight. It's not that simple. Whitmore has been working with people inside federal law enforcement. We don't know who we can trust within our own agencies. Agent Martinez leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. There's something else. Chloe isn't just David's daughter. She's also the key witness to the original crime. She was in the car when David was recording conversations with the conspirators on his phone. If she testifies to what she remembers hearing, it could be the final piece we need. Marcus felt his protective instincts flare. Absolutely not. She's 7 years old. I won't put her through that trauma. Mr. Anderson, if we don't stop Whitmore and his associates now, they will never stop hunting her. The only way to ensure Chloe's safety is to end this conspiracy once and for all. As Agent Martinez spoke, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the crowd behind her, he spotted one of the men who had been surveilling the hospital. They'd been followed. Agent Martinez, he said quietly, we need to leave, now. Before she could ask why, the sharp crack of a sniper's rifle echoed across the market. Agent Martinez crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath her. Chaos erupted as tourists screamed and scattered. Marcus grabbed the FBI agent's folder and ran, knowing that whoever had just murdered a federal agent wouldn't hesitate to kill him too. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You have 24 hours to bring us the child and all copies of the evidence. If you refuse, everyone you care about dies, starting with Rebecca. The message included a photo taken just minutes ago through the warehouse windows. Chloe asleep at her coloring table, completely vulnerable. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. While he'd been trying to find allies in the federal government, the enemy had found his family. The final battle was about to begin, and the stakes had never been higher. As sirens wailed in the distance, and Seattle PD cordoned off the crime scene, Marcus disappeared into the crowd, carrying evidence that could save thousands of lives, if he could keep his 7-year-old niece alive long enough to use it. The message arrived at dawn. Pier 47, Warehouse 12, noon today. Bring the child and all evidence. Come alone or everyone dies. Marcus stood at the window of their safe house, watching Chloe play with her stuffed rabbit, while Rebecca slept fitfully nearby. In 12 hours, he would have to make an impossible choice: surrender his niece to murderers, or watch everyone he cared about die. Boss, Tony appeared beside him. I've got our extraction plan ready. Private jet fueled and ready at Boeing Field. Safe house in Vancouver prepared. We can have them out of the country in 3 hours. And spend the rest of their lives running? No. Marcus's voice was steel. David died trying to end this. I won't let his daughter grow up looking over her shoulder every day. Dr. Chen approached quietly. Marcus, Rebecca's fever broke during the night. She's much stronger today, strong enough to travel if necessary. Actually, Rebecca's voice came from behind them, I'm strong enough to fight. She was sitting up on her makeshift bed, looking more alert than she had in days. I've been thinking about what Agent Martinez said before she was killed, about Chloe being a witness to conversations David recorded. Marcus turned to face her. Rebecca, I meant what I said. I won't put Chloe through testifying to anything traumatic. Doozy, what if she doesn't have to testify? What if we can use her memories to find David's phone recordings? Rebecca pulled Chloe onto her lap as the little girl ran over with her coloring book. Sweetheart, do you remember the day Daddy was talking on his phone in the car and he asked you to sing your special song? Chloe nodded enthusiastically. The ABC song. Daddy said it would help him remember something important. Do you remember what he said about the song? He said if anyone ever asked me about that day, I should sing the song and tell them about the numbers on his phone. Marcus felt electricity run through him. Chloe, what numbers? Daddy wrote numbers on a piece of paper while he was talking, and he told me they were like a treasure map. He said the numbers would help find where the bad people hid their treasure. Chloe recited from memory: 2847 9163 5582 7749 3021. Rebecca grabbed Marcus's arm. That's a Swiss bank account number. David found their main money account. Tony was already on his encrypted phone. Give me 10 minutes. I can trace that account and freeze it remotely. Wait, Marcus said. If we freeze the account, they'll know we have that information, but if we can access it, we can transfer their entire operations funding to accounts they can't touch, Tony finished. Boss, that's brilliant. Hit them in their wallets while we hit them with the evidence. Over the next 4 hours, Marcus coordinated the most complex operation of his life. While Tony's cyber team worked to penetrate the Swiss accounts, Marcus contacted every major news organization in Seattle. If James Whitmore wanted to destroy him publicly, Marcus would return the favor. At 11:30 a.m., Marcus stood at the entrance to Pier 47, carrying a briefcase that contained copies of all David's evidence. But he wasn't alone. Hidden throughout the warehouse district were news crews, federal agents that Agent Martinez had trusted, and Tony's full security team. More importantly, Chloe and Rebecca were safe in a federal safe house, protected by agents who had been personally vetted by the late Agent Martinez. James Whitmore was waiting in Warehouse 12, flanked by 6 armed men who looked like military contractors. At 62, James still cut an imposing figure, but Marcus could see the desperation in his eyes. Marcus, you're making this much more difficult than it needs to be, James said, his voice carrying the same paternal tone that had once comforted Marcus through family tragedies. Difficult? You murdered my brother, James. You tried to kill a 7-year-old child. You've been stealing from my company for 30 years. I built this company. James's facade cracked, revealing the rage beneath. Your father was a drunk who would have run Anderson Industries into the ground. I saved this empire, and I used it to generate wealth beyond anything your family ever imagined. By selling weapons to terrorists and dictators. By being practical about global politics. Do you have any idea how much good we've done with that money? The foundations we've funded, the scholarships we've provided, the humanitarian work. Marcus stared at the man who had been like a father to him. You actually believe you're the good guy in this story. I am the good guy. And David was going to destroy everything out of naive idealism. Where is Chloe? One of the contractors demanded. Marcus smiled grimly. Somewhere you'll never find her. But I brought you something better. He opened the briefcase, revealing not just documents, but a tablet showing live video feeds from news helicopters circling the warehouse. Right now, every major news station in Seattle is broadcasting live coverage of this meeting. Your faces, your voices, everything is being recorded and transmitted. And in about 30 seconds, my cyber team finishes transferring every penny from your Swiss accounts to a fund for the families of people killed by your weapons. James's face went white with rage. Kill him! But as the contractors raised their weapons, the warehouse doors burst open. Federal agents poured in from every entrance, followed by news crews capturing every moment. James Whitmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, arms trafficking, and money laundering, the lead agent announced. The firefight was brief but intense. When the smoke cleared, 2 of the contractors were dead, 3 were wounded and captured, and James Whitmore sat in handcuffs, his empire crumbling around him. Marcus's phone buzzed with a call from Tony. Boss, we got them all. Every account, every shell company, every hidden asset. We've recovered over $200 million in illegal funds. That evening, Marcus sat in the federal safe house with Chloe on his lap and Rebecca beside him, watching the news coverage of the arrests. The story was spreading globally. Anderson Industries executive exposes international arms conspiracy, saves his brother's family from assassins. Uncle Marcus? Chloe said, looking up at him with David's eyes. "Are the bad people gone now?" "The bad people are gone, sweetheart. You and your mom are safe." "Does that mean I can go to school and have friends and not be scared anymore?" Marcus felt tears threatening. "That means you can have whatever kind of life you want. In fact, there's something I need to tell you about your daddy." Over the next hour, Marcus explained to Chloe about her inheritance, how her father had left her money to take care of her forever, how she would never have to worry about having a home or food or medicine for her mother. But more importantly, he explained how she would never have to hide again. "I want to live with you and Mommy," Chloe said simply. "Can we be a real family?" Marcus looked at Rebecca, who smiled through her tears. "I think your daddy would like that very much." 3 months later, Chloe Anderson Harrison officially inherited her father's $70 million trust fund. The money that James Whitmore had stolen was returned, and the recovered weapons trafficking funds were donated to victims' families around the world. Marcus legally adopted Chloe as his daughter, with Rebecca's blessing. Anderson Industries, cleared of all criminal activity, became a model for corporate transparency and social responsibility. And in a small but beautiful house overlooking Elliott Bay, not a penthouse, but a real home, with a yard and swings and room for a 7-year-old to grow up safely, 3 people who had been torn apart by tragedy learned to be a family. Chloe still had nightmares sometimes, but they were getting rarer. She was enrolled in a good school, making friends, and learning to trust that the adults in her life would keep her safe. Marcus had discovered that being an uncle, and then a father, was more rewarding than any business deal he'd ever made. And Rebecca, finally free to be herself again, was applying to return to her career as a forensic accountant, this time helping other families recover from financial crimes. David's fight for justice was over. His daughter's new life was just beginning. Every evening, as Marcus tucked Chloe into her new bed in their new home, she would ask him to tell her stories about her father. Marcus would share memories of David's kindness, his integrity, his love for his family. "Daddy was brave, wasn't he?" Chloe would say. "Yes, sweetheart, your daddy was the bravest person I ever knew." "Are you brave too, Uncle Marcus?" Marcus would smile and kiss her forehead. "I learned how to be brave from watching you, Chloe. You taught me that the most important thing isn't being fearless. It's protecting the people you love, even when you're scared." And as he turned out the lights and left her room, Marcus would pause at the family photo on the hallway table. Rebecca, Chloe, and himself at Chloe's adoption ceremony, all of them smiling with genuine happiness for the first time in years. David Anderson's legacy lived on, not in the business empire that bore his name, but in the daughter he had saved and the family he had brought together through his sacrifice. The heir had finally come home, but the road to that peaceful ending had been longer and more complex than anyone could have imagined. In the weeks following James Whitmore's arrest, Marcus discovered the true scope of the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed his family. FBI investigations revealed that the weapons trafficking operation had tentacles reaching into dozens of countries, involving not just Anderson Industries, but a network of legitimate businesses that had been unknowingly used as fronts. The legal proceedings were exhausting. Marcus spent countless hours with federal prosecutors, helping them understand the financial structures that Whitmore had built. Every day brought new revelations about how thoroughly his trusted advisor had manipulated Anderson Industries for his own criminal purposes. "The hardest part," Marcus confided to Rebecca during one of their evening walks around their new neighborhood, "is realizing how naive I was. For years, I prided myself on knowing every aspect of my business, but James had entire divisions I never knew existed." Rebecca took his hand as they paused at a playground where Chloe was making friends with other children. David felt the same way when he first discovered the truth, That's why he spent so many months verifying everything before he came to you. He knew how devastating it would be. I keep wondering if there were signs I should have seen. Red flags I missed. Marcus, you were targeted specifically because of your integrity. James needed someone with an impeccable reputation to provide cover for his operations. Your honesty wasn't a weakness, it was what he was exploiting. The financial recovery was staggering. By the time federal forensic accountants finished tracing Whitmore's network, they had recovered nearly $400 million in illegal profits. The weapons that had been sold using Anderson Industries' infrastructure had fueled conflicts in 12 countries, and the recovered funds were distributed to victim compensation programs worldwide. But for Chloe, the most important recovery wasn't financial, it was emotional. The child psychologist Marcus hired, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, worked patiently with Chloe to help her process the trauma of losing her father and living in hiding for 3 years. Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Marcus and Rebecca after one of Chloe's sessions. But Chloe has been carrying adult fears and responsibilities that no 7-year-old should bear. She needs time to just be a child again. That process included therapy sessions where Chloe could safely remember her father without the overlay of fear and danger. Marcus made sure she had photos of David, videos of him reading bedtime stories, and mementos that helped her connect with positive memories of her biological father. "Uncle Marcus," Chloe said one evening as he tucked her into bed, "I had a dream about Daddy last night, but it wasn't a scary dream. He was teaching me how to ride a bicycle, and he told me he was proud that you're taking care of me now." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I think your daddy would be very proud of how brave and strong you've been, sweetheart. Will you teach me to ride a bicycle, like Daddy would have?" "I would love to teach you to ride a bicycle. In fact, we can start this weekend if you want." The adoption process took 3 months to complete, but Marcus wanted to make sure every legal detail was perfect. He refused to rush anything that might create vulnerabilities for Chloe's security or legal standing. During the court hearing for the adoption, Judge Patricia Morrison addressed Chloe directly. "Chloe, do you understand what it means for Mr. Anderson to become your legal father?" "It means he'll take care of me forever and ever," Chloe replied seriously. "And it means I get to keep my real daddy's name and my new daddy's name, so I'm Chloe Anderson Harrison." "And how do you feel about that?" Chloe looked at Marcus with absolute trust. "I feel safe, and I feel like I have 2 daddies who love me, one in heaven and one right here." Judge Morrison smiled. "That's exactly right, sweetheart." The legal formalities were completed, but the real work of becoming a family happened in the small daily moments. Marcus learning to braid Chloe's hair, with considerable help from YouTube videos. Rebecca teaching him how to make Chloe's favorite grilled cheese sandwiches cut into flower shapes. Family movie nights where they let Chloe choose between age-appropriate films, and she invariably chose animated musicals that she would sing along with at the top of her lungs. Marcus's transformation from bachelor CEO to devoted father was remarkable to witness. Tony, his security chief, who had become a close family friend, often joked that Marcus had gone from someone who scheduled bathroom breaks to someone who knew the exact time when Chloe needed her afternoon snack to avoid a meltdown. "Boss, remember when you used to complain about having to attend charity galas because they interfered with your workout schedule?" Tony said one evening as they watched Marcus patiently help Chloe with her homework. "Now you rearrange international conference calls to attend her school plays." "Priorities change," Marcus replied, not looking up from the math worksheet. "Chloe, remember we talked about carrying the one when you add these numbers." Rebecca's recovery was equally remarkable, though more complex. Returning to her identity as Dr. Rebecca Harrison meant reconnecting with a professional life she'd abandoned 3 years ago. The forensic accounting field had changed, technology had advanced, and she needed time to rebuild her confidence. But her experience as a victim of financial crime had given her unique insights that made her incredibly effective at helping other families recover from similar situations. Within 6 months of returning to work, she had become one of the most sought-after forensic accountants in the Pacific Northwest. "It's strange," she confided to Marcus one evening. "I spent 3 years thinking of my old life as something I'd lost forever. But being Rebecca Miller, even though it was a false identity, taught me things about resilience and survival that I never would have learned as Dr. Rebecca Harrison. Do you ever regret that we found you? That your quiet life with Chloe was disrupted?" Rebecca looked at him with surprise. "Marcus, Chloe and I weren't living, we were surviving. There's a huge difference. Now we're building a life together, all 3 of us. How could I regret that?" The house Marcus bought for them wasn't the largest or most expensive property he could have afforded, but it was perfect for their family. A craftsman-style home with a large backyard, mature trees for climbing, and enough space for Chloe to have friends over without the adults feeling overwhelmed. Marcus had initially worried about moving from his downtown penthouse to a suburban neighborhood, but he discovered that he loved the rhythm of family life. Saturday morning pancakes became a sacred tradition. Evening walks around the neighborhood gave them time to talk without the distractions of work or technology. Chloe's bedtime routine evolved into storytelling sessions where Marcus would tell her about her father's childhood, her grandparents she'd never met, and the Anderson family history that she was now part of. "Tell me about when Daddy was little," became her favorite bedtime request. "When your daddy was 7 years old, just like you are now, he decided he wanted to build a treehouse, but he was too impatient to wait for help, so he tried to drag a ladder twice his size out to the big oak tree in our backyard." "What happened?" "Well, the ladder got stuck in the doorway, and your daddy was too stubborn to give up. So he got wedged between the ladder and the doorframe, hanging there like a koala on a branch, yelling for help." Chloe would giggle at these stories, and Marcus realized that sharing these memories wasn't just comforting her, it was helping him remember David as more than a tragedy. David had been a curious, determined, loving brother who would have been an incredible father if he'd lived to see Chloe grow up. The first-year anniversary of their reunion was marked not with sadness, but with celebration. They planted a tree in their backyard in David's memory, and Chloe insisted on hanging a small bird feeder from one of the branches. "Daddy loved birds," she explained to Marcus and Rebecca. "He always said they reminded him that no matter how bad things got, there was always someone singing somewhere." As the seasons changed and their family settled into its new rhythm, Marcus often reflected on how completely his life had been transformed by a single phone call from a scared 7-year-old. The CEO, who had once measured success in quarterly profits and market share, now measured it in Chloe's bedtime giggles and Rebecca's confident smiles. Anderson Industries continued to thrive under Marcus's leadership, but it operated with a completely different philosophy. The company established a victims fund for families affected by the weapons trafficking, created scholarship programs for children orphaned by violence, and implemented transparency measures that became industry standards. Every decision was now filtered through a simple question: what would David think of this? It was a question that kept Marcus grounded in values rather than pure profit margins. On quiet evenings, when Chloe was asleep and Rebecca was reading nearby, Marcus would sometimes look at family photos and marvel at the journey that had brought them together. A conspiracy born of greed and violence had nearly destroyed them all, but it had also revealed the strength of family bonds that transcended blood relations. The little girl who had made a desperate phone call to save her mother had ended up saving them all. Not just from physical danger, but from lives that were successful but incomplete. David Anderson's daughter had finally found her way home, bringing with her a love that transformed everyone she touched. The heir had finally come home, and in doing so, had made them all richer than any inheritance could have managed.